Yeah. Give her a few minutes.
Yeah.
We're respecting Nancy, so we'll give her a few seconds, but we'll get going shortly. You have
It is
what do you have?
fast. Yeah.
Let me know when it's 3-0, please.
It's 7:27, so yeah.
Hey, good. I know. How are you? So you're officially not here? You're officially here. in Hanover. Well, in Hanover. Good. They're good. Everyone's good. Thanks. Yeah. Uh-huh. Perfect. And you got a good health coverage, or, you know, it's expensive, but you still got it. So good. Well, congrats. I don't know if I've seen you. I knew that you had got married, but so congrats. In July? Yeah. Well, I saw you. I think that's when I saw you. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I have to say that I'm pretty tired. Of like,
Yeah, the top.
there's been a lot of stuff lately, so.
This fan and the lower knob. Oh, yeah, you can set the time.
Yeah. No, it's not ugly. It's just a lot of time,
Yeah.
you know, like the state of Philly master plan was from 9:30 to 12 on Saturday.
Yeah, but you can also.
We're trying to hire a new town manager. Just a
Are
ton of
operated
time.
by that
Board of assessors.
small
is-
box over there.
I'm on that advisory committee, I'm on that bike tech committee, you know, as the extra thing, so. So there's one thing there.
Love to.
What are you?
Yeah, Kate's not the one.
Don't want to do the wind.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, sometimes you gotta play, you know,
Wings game.
depends on what overhead fans or. What?
They, if you figure, if you take the halves in half, the first 10 minutes, they blew them out. The first, second, they were on their heels in the second. And I was convinced that Con would just keep that going. The second, and the third and fourth quarters, they just blew them out again. It's amazing. It makes us unbelievably good. It's one of those great days or something. I don't know.
There's an interesting game.
Now, did you watch on TV by chance?
Yes.
Now, did you have to put up with that stupid gown?
Yard looks good, Barry.
I emailed it.
I said your yard looks good. You're putting the rest of us to shame. I
Ready?
think really,
All right.
you know.
Hold on. Okay, are we ready?
Oh, are they? Oh, cool.
Not quite yet. Okay, we're not ready. I'm ready. Let us know when you're ready. Okay. Any songs to sing? Dance routine? Come on, Norm, you can do it. You can do it, Norm. Come on, you're on. Give us that old two-step, baby.
You wouldn't invite me back.
Your last performance. Oh.
Two left feet, right?
Mm.
Make your computer eat.
Oh, yeah.
He's ready.
I think we're on.
He just said we're on.
We're on, okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Hanover Selectboard meeting of April 4th, 2022. We're here tonight to have some fun and do good work for the town. And as always, the first order of business is public comment. David.
I'm coming tonight.
David, could you introduce yourself, please? So,
My name is David Vincelette. I live at 92 Leavenworth Street. Here for 38 years. We jumped in the brook this April 1st for the 38th year in a row. And thanks for the blessings we have to live in a wonderful country. I've been fighting with this town because 17 years ago I discovered they thought so much of the population that they decided to dump asphalt waste and coal tar all along the roads upstream in the center of town. How can be that I spent my life purchasing land upstream along the brook and it polluted my water intakes. This town thought it was above the law. They could pollute people. Call it a recycling program. We got Dartmouth College involved in it. We put roundup parking lots from the hospital, the old hospital, and construction projects, and use it all along the roads were plenty to my drinking water. When I complained about it, they brought the hammer down on me. Bulldozed my farmhouse. Took all the buildings I'd taken apart piece by piece for years. Ground it all up. They did it without even allowing me to fight to get it stopped. They sent the police up a week early, supervised all that. Then they told me that they take it all when it all. I'm just sick of fighting the town. Tyranny is allowed to be ruled by a small group of Dartmouth insiders who make rules for the town, allow people to be polluted. And instead of admitting it when they got caught, you double down, you put a fence around my property, held me hostage, held my wife hostage, my children, my daughters. 25 months I was held in violation of state and federal law. Federal laws that prohibit the abuse of slaves, violation of slaves' constitutional rights, the laws that you broke. 3 African-American men were staying at my property at the time that you all did this. Their rights were violated. My wife, who's Ukrainian, now sits up at night every day because you have a 3-year-old grandson in Ukraine trying to get back to America, trying to get to America for the first time with his mother and his father. His father can't leave because of the war. Trying to get their own destiny. Look back on our time here in Hanover, we tried to build a prosperous little place where we take care of lots of people. We have rental property. It's all taken by the town. Building inspector was asked if he'd ever authorized the buildings to be torn down. He said it was never even talked. Robert Houseman decided to have the buildings all torn down. Now we have family we're trying to gather from the other side of the world. We've lost most of our property. Just in awe of the Ukrainian people, how they stand up to the government. I'm proud to say I've stood up to you sons of bitches for 17 years so far, and I'm gonna keep doing it. Because what you've done is illegal, immoral, unconscionable, and you still have the Dartmouth weathervane out on your wall here. Racist depiction of a Native American boy being abused by government. That's your sign of authority in this town. You all sit around here acting like you don't know what's going on. None of you can visit us when we're in trouble. None of you care about what's going on with my wife and children. You still have yet to apologize for what you've done to us. But you're going to apologize. Maybe not tonight.
Any other public comments?
Nick? Let's see, can you do something with the sound? We're getting this.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay.
Okay, so no other public comment. The first order of business is a pre-town meeting public hearing to consider and review the proposed warrant for May 10th, 2022 town meeting. So we are reviewing the warrant. I guess we start at the top. Do you want to kind of?
So actually, Peter, your role is to look at Articles 12
Yeah.
through 27, not the top. Articles 1 through 11 are the election of officers, as well as the 10 amendments to the Hanover zoning ordinance, 6 that were proposed by the planning board, and 4 that were submitted by petition. So the planning board has held its public hearings and acted on all of those zoning related amendments. And we now, the board must take a position on each of the warrant articles, beginning with Article 12, which begins the business meeting portion of town meeting, which will start at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, May 10th. And so the first article to consider, Article 12, is to choose the following town officers. We have 2 members of the Advisory Board of Assessors, one who was appointed as an interim member this past year, and another whose term is up, so staggered their terms, one for 3 years and one for a term of 2 years. And then we have our 3 fence viewers and our 2 surveyors of wood and timber, all lined up again for these auspicious.
So you'll fill in these names?
I will make sure they don't appear on the warrant, but whoever presents this warrant article at town meeting will have on their full warrant the names of the individuals that are being.
So what do you need from us on 12?
So all I need you to do is to vote for or against the
Having these positions, basically.
correct.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of Article 12?
No, I clarified this last time. We don't need a motion.
No, you don't.
Last year I clarified it. We just sort of vote.
Just vote.
All right, I'm happy with that.
I did. I'm sorry. I was.
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah.
Save-
Well, I was getting
save
tired.
time.
We went through 20 things. We had to do a motion.
All those in favor of Article 12, any public comment on 12? Article 12, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Article 13,
So I'm actually gonna have Norm Bernash come up and talk to you about 13, 14, and 15, because they are somewhat linked. And Norm has developed the recommendations for the new exemption, qualifying exemption income and household value levels, property value levels for the individuals who'd be eligible for these exemptions. So I thought it would be helpful just to have Norm walk you through these.
okay, please, Norm.
And I put tape on my finger to get sympathy.
Yes. Unless you dance, it won't work.
13 addresses the elderly exemptions. There's 3 categories of elderly exemptions: 65 to 74, 75 to 80, and 80, or 75 to 79, and 80 and older. Historically, the 65 to 74 has been at a lower exemption amount, and then with 75 to 79 has been at a stepped up level, and then after 80, it's the highest level. That's historically the way it's been. Well, the last time the town looked at this was 2008. Since then, there's been 3 revaluations that have taken place. I think they did it in 08 when there was a revaluation that had occurred. We had one in 13, we had one in 18, we had the most recent one in 21. So it was time to look at that again. One of the things that I looked at was the income change from the closest dates I could find from 2008 to now, and looked at the percentage change of the median income in Hanover specifically. Tried to apply some of those numbers to that. And I also looked at the average or the change in value from 2008 to 2021, the percent change, which gave me a number that in adjusting the exemption amounts brought it in line with pretty much the averages in towns that I picked out. The state has a list every year. They list all the exemption amounts and the required assets and required income. So those numbers came out pretty close to what I'm recommending here. I tried to pick as best could be similar socioeconomic type communities and sort of higher value type communities. So basically what we're talking about for 65 to 74 is going from 80 to 96,000. 75 to 79 going from 120 to 144. 80 years and older, 165 to 198. Right now, we presently have 5 elderly exemption applications or people, residents that are getting the exemption for a total assessed value of $600,000. So that's about $7,500 a year in taxes. Probably a little more than that, probably 8,000. And then the net income, taking the change in median income from 08 to as close as we can find in 21, it would mean that we would be going from a single person gross income, which includes Social Security, from 32 to 36.8, and then a married income from 45 to 51.7. And then the net asset from 75 to 125, which seems to be in line with a lot of the assets of other communities. That's just about it on the elderly. Any questions on 13?
Just the wording, maybe you can't change it, but if you look at the last sentence of that, I think it's going to carry through to all of these. It says this article represents a recommended modification of the current exemption for the elderly. Of is not the right modifier, I don't think. It's not a, you're going from 80 to 96,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So it's exemption for the elderly from, I don't know what the right, it's not of.
It's like from 80 to 96,000, right?
Personally,
We can,
just work on that word.
yeah, I just want to make sure it's
It's
not,
not an
it's
exemption of
not the
80,000.
statutory language. If
Yeah, I
it
know.
is, DRA will say, sorry, it's the way it's supposed
I'm
to be
just
written.
saying, if you can help us out on that one. And
So
also.
this
that last-
article represents a recommended modification of the current exemption for the elderly from 80,000 for a person 65 to 75 years of age
To
to-
96.
to, yeah.
Well, it says the 90, it has the recommended numbers up in paragraph.
But yeah, you don't need to
No.
repeat the numbers because they're up in the paragraph above. So this is the wording pulled out of the statute, but I'll confirm with the town attorney that we can swap words there.
And also, so you've set the starting point for the exemptions, but you don't set the starting point for the income qualification.
Right,
So if, to be consistent, one would think you'd. have a
add
sentence-
another sentence that
Yeah.
also reflects.
Or don't, or just delete that
No, you
last
ha-
sentence.
I would be happy to leave the last one, but you might not be able to.
I don't believe you can. I think this is the statutorily outlined wording but I'll check with the town attorney
Yeah.
tomorrow.
That's,
So you're thinking add another sentence here that would be,
well, I'm just trying to be consistent.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
We have the starting points for the actual exemption. I think we also therefore should state the starting point for the means, for the means income,
yeah,
means section.
I mean, if you could get rid of that last paragraph and just, or that last sentence and just include it in your explanation.
Which is
which
nicely
is
done.
Nicely done.
Nicely
with
done in the
that.
explanation.
yeah. Again, I'll check.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will check, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Article 14.
I'm
Wait a
sorry, one
minute.
second. Well, let's say on 13. Kari,
So I'm not quite sure I understand.
Or you can move the mic over and
introduce yourself.
So Kari Asmus, I'm the chair of the finance committee, and I just would like to say that Herschel Knocklist is here also this evening to speak particularly to these items. Reporting out for the finance committee so that it's not just me, but I have to say I'm following up on your points, and I wasn't sure what you meant by the starting point. And I just wanted to say that it is very important that we clarify that the effective date is April 1st, 2022 for this tax year, because if you don't have that in there, then it doesn't start for another year. And then we just push it all back. So the date is very important. And, I think that it's clear that it applies to both the exemption as well as the income limits. But again, I would leave that up to the attorney as long as we're clear on what the effective date is. That can't go away.
Got it.
So that was my point. But what did you mean Peter, by the start?
It's the net income, Kari. So the net income for singles currently is 32,000 and for married it's 45,000. And the warrant article resets those net income levels up to 36,800 and 51,700. And because the last sentence in this warrant article references the current exemption levels,
Right.
the board also thought, in fairness, we should have a complementary sentence that references the current income levels.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
as long as we are clear when the effective date is.
Right.
That's
So-
what it is.
So that's what I'm
Just
gonna
make that a
query
standalone
tomorrow.
sentence.
If we can eliminate that last sentence, we can't eliminate the last part of that last
Right,
sentence.
it says.
Right,
as long
that-
as the
yes.
effective date is in there,
Got
that's.
it.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
critical. But I would also, I don't know, Churchill was wanting to speak now or later, but I have my clarification, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm kind of jumping down, I don't want to interrupt Norm.
Oh, that's all
So
right.
we're doing 13, so.
We're doing Article 13, so now's the time to come up.
Now's the time.
As long as you. You gotta take your current answer.
Yeah, so I'm Colonel Eccles also. Just two quick points I should follow from recount of the history. So the first point is just a procedural footnote, which is it might be helpful if we built into sort of institutional memory or institutional mechanism for just tying these three exemptions review to the 5-year reevaluation, so we don't kind of do this on an ad hoc quick time frame. I very much appreciate the board sort of getting this in under the gun this time, but if we sort of just institutionally, informally, or through some form of mechanism tie it to that time period, then just
Yeah.
then we know what we're doing.
Yeah,
And it makes everything easier.
I think because we have so few people participating in the program, Herschel, it tends to be one of these things that's not a major work product for the staff, and so it falls off the radar. Some communities have many more residents who qualify for these exemptions than others, and so not poor Norm. He's our new assessor. He has nothing to do with prior revals, but you're right. We just don't have a lot of users, and so it's not one of the high priority issues we're struggling with every reval.
But it's, I think your suggestion is a good one. I think we should, put it in your notes and whoever's here in 5 years can.
And if you go back
Take
and
it up.
look at the last time we did this and the time prior to that, we did it before the revow, not after the revow. As I went back and looked at our prior warrant articles on this and the background information, I thought, okay, note to self, note to my successor, do it before, as you get ready to start a new revow.
Yeah, and that's usually my board step room, is to do it during a revow, but I haven't. Coming out, so. It wasn't certainly my top priority, but yes, it should be normal. Of course, it is. That sounds great.
Herschel, can you speak into the mic? I just got a text from someone that
They
people
can't
with
hear you.
masks, they can't hear you. So maybe bring the mic closer when you speak.
Did they teaching lost my voice?
Okay.
Just checking Cedar's checking to make sure it's on. If you hold that button, Cedar.
And then very quickly, all right.
Sorry, Herschel.
Okay, the procedural point was the main point, so that sounds great. And the second point is just on the numbers, which Norm certainly knows far better than I do. So it seems like the last time we did this was 2008. The increase in what's proposed, and again, this is just a footnote more for historical memory than an active revision. It seems like the increase over that is 15%, although in the interim, I think inflation's up roughly 30%. And it seems like where we end up here is, and I might have this wrong, in which case my apologies, where we end up here is still below what line recently voted by Warrant articles to adjust up to. And so it's just worth being mindful of those comparisons for obvious reasons.
Norm, I don't, this issue of should it be higher? Maybe walk the board again through your calculation, and I think it was based on the previous calculations we used to determine prior exemption, but.
Yeah, for instance, the median average.
You got to move the mic. I'll referee the mic. Okay.
So the median average of 65 to 74 was 78,000. We're at 96,000. Median from 75 to 79 was 105. We're at 144 for the exemption amount, and the median was 150, and we're at 198. And that does recognize that we probably have some higher value properties, and taking into consideration, I looked at what a tax bill was in 2008 and what a tax bill was in 2021 on the same property, if that person owned it back in 08 and 2021 without any changes. So that was factored into the decision to recommend what I recommended.
Thank you.
Hi, Kimberly Hartman. I am the school board representative on the Hanover Finance Committee as well, and I have a policy wonk nit question on this, I have to admit, and it's really just reflective of kind of experience looking at state RSAs related to special education and years of eligibility. So I guess my question is, when you look at the 13 as written, if you're 75 years old, which bucket do you qualify for, and when does that birthday date happen? So is it 74 years and 364 days? And it's a very nit, but I have to admit that if you're in it, it might make a difference.
Right.
So just a question of maybe if we could clarify that, or just think about when the effective birthday date is, might be helpful, because you might be on the border of one of the two. So thanks.
That's that date is April 1st. Your birthday is going to fall on April 1st. It's the tax year.
Right.
So you have to be old enough by April 1st.
By April 1st tax year
Correct.
to qualify for that.
Of the year that you're applying for the exemption. You already have to have turned either 65 to 74, 75 to 79. You have to be in one of those three categories. And there's other criteria, living in New Hampshire for X amount of years, and there's other criteria about if you got remarried and how long you have to wait So there's other RS, corresponding RSAs that go along with it for the qualification.
Okay, are we done with 13? Board, all those in favor of 13? Okay. Yes.
Modify it.
No, I may try and strengthen or clarify this language, but I've got to talk to Laura Spector Morgan about it because I'm not sure I can. And if I do eliminate that last sentence, I can't eliminate the will be effective April 1st, 2022 for the 2022 tax year.
I mean, you could just create a new sentence that says it will be effective,
Yes.
you know,
yeah.
and doesn't really go with that anyway, so.
Yeah.
But if it's statutory, you know, you
I
have to
don't
follow
think
the
we changed
statutes.
anything substantive.
Yeah,
Right.
nothing
Just for
substantive.
clarity.
Better
Just
read.
just from a procedural perspective, don't we have to come back next meeting and look at this again?
No. Oh, no, you're not looking at the warrant article again, Bill, because it will already be on the warrant. What you're holding a public hearing on at your next meeting is the notion of granting or supporting an increase in the elderly exemption.
So you just have to have a second hearing. and
Correct.
Give people an opportunity to,
To speak to this
so they
issue,
can't.
but the
change
warrant,
it. The warrant article is done,
you're correct.
so.
Trust me, it makes no sense to me, but
Okay.
a lot of New Hampshire statute makes no sense.
Okay.
On 13, all those in favor?
Aye.
So Nancy goes down as absent. I guess, huh?
Yep. She goes down. Is that
14, same drill.
Okay, 14 is very similar. In the disabled exemption was at 165, which was the maximum for the 80 and over. I'm recommending that we move it, we keep it similar to the over 80, which is 198. The income was lower than the 65 to 74. You know, those three categories, or I'm sorry, single and married. So I attempted to increase it a similar percentage for the disabled as I did for the elderly.
Okay.
And then the net assets would be the same as Article
13?
13.
Right. So basically you increase the net income by the same relative amount, Norm, for the disabled
Yes.
exemption. Yeah, okay.
Okay, any public comment on 13?
14.
14.
14, any public comment on 14? Board, all those in favor? 15.
The blind exemption is a little different than other exemptions. It's not income based. It's just if you get a letter from the state, a doctor that is has the authority to determine that you're 100% blind, you get the exemption. That's the way it works. It's a specific letter that is, and the format is specific. So I'm just recommending changing assessed value from 30 to 35. We had, I think we had 2 in 21. I think we only have 1 in 22 so far. And that date is fast approaching. April 15th is the deadline to apply
For an exemption.
for an exemption.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So essentially, if I am determined legally blind and I have a house that's assessed at $100,000, does this 35,000 subtract from the 100,000
So you're taxed on the net.
on the net of
Correct.
65,000?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
You can find me a house for 100,000.
Well, yeah, well, you know, I was reading it, I'm like, there's nothing that exists, you know, I have a bicycle, or Athos has a bunch of bicycles that may, well, no, they're probably, you get a full exemption if you could live in them.
Right, right,
Anyway,
right.
Okay,
I got it. Thank you very much. I just needed a simple.
okay, avoid any more questions on 15. Public, any questions on 15? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4.
Article 16.
16.
16 and 17 are the companion warrant articles, simply appropriating $5,000 into the Land and Capital Improvements Fund.
Thanks, Norm.
And thanks, Norm, into the Conservation Fund. This is the minimum.
That's a small amount this year, huh?
We didn't get a lot of land use change tax transactions happening in the fiscal year that ended last June 30. So 5,000 is essentially the bare minimum that we put in under this assumption into each fund. And in the background information, just for folks who are curious, the current balance, the current balance in the Land and Capital Improvements Fund is 25,100. And if you recall, we spent a chunk of change on the library and on the donation for the Minkbrook Community Forest. And then we've got $314,779 in the Conservation Fund, although a fair amount of that money is sort of specifically allocated for projects. But yeah, just to give you a sense of what we have in each fund.
So we're on
16 and 17.
16. Public
Yep.
comment on 16. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
17, public comment on 17. Hearing none, board?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 18 is to appropriate the $32,000 collected in motor vehicle registration into the municipal transportation fund based on the proceeds generated in fiscal year 2020-2021.
So there's,
It tends to fluctuate a little bit, Athos, but it's typically right in this 31,500 to, we've been up to $34,000 at some point. Yeah.
So-
This is just about, excuse me, I'm sorry. Joanne, I
No, go ahead.
apologize. This is just a $5, this isn't the one based on the value.
No, this is just a $5 surcharge that everyone pays when they register their motor
Sorry.
vehicle.
no, I was just gonna say, we always have this come town meeting is that we have Article 18 and then we go do like this whole, all the
List.
numbers and then Article 21.
Right.
Is there any way that 21 can go after 18? Just so they're like next to each other, because it's like 16 and 17, it makes logical sense, and it's 18 and 21. Because
Yeah,
it's right.
I don't think there's any reason why I couldn't flip Article 21 and have it follow Article 18. Article 21 is the appropriation of money for a project coming out of the Municipal Transportation Improvement Fund. And then I'll just have to renumber all the articles. It's no big deal if you want me to do that.
Yeah, well, it just seems, we go through this every, when we're doing the assignments and discussion, this.
I think the reason we've done it this way, Joanna, is that it follows Article 20, which is the appropriation of expenditures from all the other capital reserve funds to do capital projects. And so for whatever reason, we've
Yep.
snugged it up next to that
Yep.
warrant article rather than as a companion to the appropriating money into the municipal transportation improvement fund.
Well, I think it would be a nice change if that's okay with my fellow board members and if it's not too much to ask.
Out for word processing. Okay, we'll do that when we get to it, but it'll be
Yep.
renumbered. Okay, so where were we? We're on 18. Any public comment on 18? Board? All those in favor?
Aye.
19, oh, that's a yummy one. Right out of the budget. Fine,
No, it's
correct?
perfect timing. This
Oh,
is
Nancy's
Nancy's
your
favorite
article.
one.
We're on Articles 19 and 20. Nancy, which are your favorite warrant articles, the appropriation of money
Perfect.
into and out of the capital improvement
ma'am.
funds? Yeah.
Initial them for me, please.
Okay, 19 is right out of the budget, if I'm correct.
19 and 20 are right out of the budget. 19 appropriates contributions into the various capital reserve funds totaling $2,173,002. And then 20 appropriates money out of the capital reserve funds to the tune of 1,541,051 for the series of planned capital improvement projects proposed to be implemented in the next fiscal year.
Comment from the public on 19. Hearing none on board.
Good.
Aye.
Aye.
Can we go back and have Nancy vote on the others?
Yeah, absolutely, Nancy. We could quickly go back to Article 12, which is the town appointment of town officers. I had you as absent.
Would you add mine as a four?
As a,
vote, please?
yep, as a, okay, 4,
Yes,
and
all
then
those.
Article 13, which is the elderly exemption, had you as a 4 vote.
Correct.
Okay, and then Article 14, the disabled exemption.
Yep.
Okay. And then Article 16, which is, or I'm sorry, Article 15, which is the blind exemption. You're now the 5th vote there. Article 16, deposit into the land and capital improvements fund. You're a yes vote, okay. Article 17, appropriation of money into the conservation fund, yes vote.
Correct.
Okay, and so Article 18 is spending money, is depositing money into the municipal transportation improvement fund.
Yes, I can see that.
Okay, and now we're on Article 19.
And I think we just did vote on
And
19.
you just voted on 19. Okay, that's right. So now we're on Article 20.
Public comment on 20. Again, this is right from our budget, so we're not, we've been through these line items. Board, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. 20.
When do you think we're gonna get the question about buying new police vehicles?
Oh, we'll get it, don't worry.
Yeah, and I've explained in the background information.
know,
If
I know.
anybody reads it, but this is the 2 vehicles that we only replace every 7 to 8 years, as opposed to the cruisers, which we replace every 3 to 4 years. So I'll answer that question if it's asked at town meeting, Athos, no problem.
It will be.
Appropriation of, let's see, 20, Article
20.
21, 20, you just voted on 20, right?
Not
Yeah.
yet.
Nope, capital.
Yeah, we did.
improvement.
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So 21, which will become Article
19.
19, because we're gonna bump it up to follow the appropriation of money into the municipal transportation improvement fund, is to appropriate money out of the municipal transportation improvement fund for the sidewalk segment along Reservoir Road from Hemlock to the Strong Trail.
Public comment on 21. Hearing none, board.
I have a quick question, I'm sorry.
Sure.
What kind of sidewalk are we building? Is it like a, I mean, is pavement or is it like concrete?
It's
or-
curb, it's
It's a curb sidewalk.
granite curbing, right?
Yeah, right, and but it's gonna be, so the sidewalk ends at the race school,
Yes,
Athos,
I
or
know.
just at the east side of the race school property. Right to the crosswalk, and then this sidewalk will be on the other side of
Sure.
Reservoir Road. But to match the sidewalk that's on the Reservoir Road, so the race school side of Reservoir Road, right up to the Strong Trail.
So it's not a tarmac with a.
No, it's got granite curbing.
And that's great, because what happens is kids cross from the Strong Trail, they cross Reservoir Road there, and it's a
Right.
hill and
Not a
it's a
good
blind
place to
hill.
cross, so you
So
want,
it's,
you want to lure them down via a decent sidewalk as opposed to crossing.
Yeah. no, it's a good little segment.
Currently member Article 21. Any public comment? Board, all in favor?
Aye.
Article 22, 23, and 24 are our 3 bargaining unit agreements. Bear in mind, because you're going to approve the AFSCME police and the IAFF contracts themselves shortly. This is just, so you're sort of putting the cart before the horse here. You're voting for the warrant article, but I'm assuming that you're going to approve those union contracts, and since you approved the AFSCME contract, but just be advised.
Okay.
So Article 22 is the DPW contract for 1 year, fiscal year 22-23.
These are all built, these are all part, we built these all into the budget again.
Correct. These
What we
were,
were hoping for.
Correct, these match what we budgeted.
Okay. Public comment on 22.
Our absence of the finance committee, Bill, Jerry, perhaps report out that the finance committee did endorse support of the contract with the public works employees. We unfortunately didn't have the results of the other two contracts, but it is in our statement that was the case, and that we thank all of our employees, union and non-employee, union and non-union, for all of their efforts during the past couple of years, their forbearance, et cetera. So I wanted to make sure that message got amplified here this evening. The two questions I had about all three, and I got the answer the last meeting, but all of these, are there any cost items at all involved besides the 2% step increase and 3% COLA that are built into the budget, as we just said? So are there any additional cost items? And then the other one, am I right in understanding that both the step and the COLA take effect on the person's anniversary? So, no, I'm wrong about that.
COLA takes effect for everybody on July 1st.
Okay.
Step takes place on their 6-month anniversary date, Kari, because they start day one with one step, advance a second step at the 6-month mark, and that then becomes their anniversary going forward for triggering the 2% step increases. So COLA takes place on July 1st, and the step increases correspond with their anniversary dates.
So then in effect, all employees will be having 12 months of the 3% COLA, but it's not as though everybody actually is going to have a
2% step increase on the same day. Right.
Or a
full year.
A full year of a 5% increase.
Right.
So it's actually effectively for the employees less than 5% for
Right.
the coming year.
Right.
Because of the delay of the step.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. But yes, as we go along, we can continue saying any other costs.
The only additional cost increase was in the DPW AFSCME bargaining unit, which we talked about, which was a CDL premium
Yeah.
of $250 a year for individuals who came with a CDL and retained it. But other than that, no.
And that is an annual renewal for that license?
No, it's every 2 years, I
Yeah, so it's,
believe. Every 2 or 3 now.
yeah, but it's not. I
No,
would
it's
say
not
that
every
it
year.
wasn't every year
Right.
anyway, so it's even less.
Well, no, they'll receive $250 a year for retaining their CDL. It's intended to attract new employees as well, because the CDLs are becoming more difficult to find with individuals applying for positions in public work. So it's an annual $250 premium pay that they'll receive if they have and maintain their CDL.
Thank you for repeating that, because I
Yes.
misunderstood it the last time.
Right.
All right.
And the acronym CDL stands for?
Commercial driver's license.
Which I asked the last time, I didn't know it the last time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further questions from the public on 22? Hearing none on the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
23 deals with a separate union. Any questions from the public on 23?
Which is asked me, public, police department employees.
Again, all these contracts are similar, are the same. Hearing none on the board on 23.
Aye.
Aye. 24. Any
IAFF, firefighters.
And
Same.
any public, any comment from the public on 24? Hearing none, board.
Aye.
Okay,
And the Article 25 is the net of all of the items that have, the fiscal or financial items that have been approved above. So this is the net appropriation to amount to the budget that was approved by the board, $28,239,746.
some public on 25.
Ross from Edna. I think last year I said something about wanting to spending and then didn't get back to you guys with the numbers on that, so I apologize. So Kari and I were brainstorming a little bit about what other alternatives we might have rather than increasing something in the budget this year or looking to pay something to increase the social service spending in the budget this year. I think that you probably know that New Hampshire has low taxes and low public expenditures. We have 15% lower than the U.S. average, and in terms of our total direct public expenditures, and 20% less than the U.S. and the New England average on public welfare expenditures. So the money that you allocate toward social service agencies is helping to try to help to make up for the lack of funding on a state level. And so adding something to, I think doing things within the budget, especially at this extremely late period of time, is not feasible. But two ideas that we wanted to run past you, or that I wanted to run past you, that I think might be worth considering. One would be having tables set up at town meeting for all of the social service agencies that we're funding, to give them an opportunity to tell people in the community about the work that they're doing, and also to potentially make additional donations on town meeting day if they wish to do so. And another possibility would be to do something like add a checkbox or an opportunity on the actual tax bill, where people could choose to donate an extra X amount of their tax money to the set of social service agencies that the town funds. And this would be an opt-in option, but it would be a way potentially to say, these are the social service agencies that this town believes that are important to people in the community. And if you check this box, we will double your contribution, or whatever would be the right thing, way to do that. I know you can't think of a way to do that, the latter one now, but I wonder if we might explore that as something to do in the next tax year. And I wonder if you would consider doing the first one in this for town meeting this year.
So I'm not sure legally that we can do the second thing, Kim. I'm looking at Tina, she's shaking her head no, because all the hairs on the back of my head and neck go up, because I can imagine the conversation I'm having with the Department of Revenue Administration about this, because in the past, we've gone so far as to try and figure out if we can add notes in tax bills or on tax bills. And you can't. And so the best that the town could do would be to get involved in some sort of supplemental fund drive that would support the agencies that are supported in the town budget. In terms of tabling at town meeting, I think what we'd have, it's up to the moderator, not up to the select board. We would, if we did it, it would have to be limited to the evening meeting and not during the day, because the moderator, I know, would say, short of them being outdoors, there's not enough space in the hallway of the high school gymnasium to effectively allow that level of tabling. If you had tabling in the evening when school is not in session, it's far less problematic in terms of messing up the flow of students and activities going by the gymnasium during the school day. So, but it would be a question that we'd have to first ask Jeremy Eggleton. And if Jeremy said that would be okay for them to be out in the hall, then we could offer that opportunity to the agencies to come do tabling prior to the evening meeting. But it's a moderator call, not the select board's call.
Yeah, if you would be willing to, or I can certainly do that instead, which I think it would be more appropriate. But
if the, if the board's comfortable with that happening, I know we had a couple of groups, Sustainable Hanover, one had asked the moderator if some tabling could occur that evening. I don't know what the outcome of that ask was, and I think there was one other group that was interested in tabling, so the question will be, the issue will be up to Jeremy to determine if he thinks it's feasible to do that and not in any way impact somebody's access to the polls.
Peter?
Please.
Kim, I mean, one thing we do in normal times, what we often do is, every budget season, we have our social services come and present at a public forum and share with us what they do and make their request. And I think this year we didn't do that, but we went through all the requests very carefully. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we found a way to give a little more than what they asked for. So, I mean, it's not ideal. It's not ideal, but.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, where are we?
That was the budget one.
On the budget one, 25. Any more public comment on 25? Again, right from the budget. Board, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
26.
And this, I know what you're gonna say, Peter, at least I'm reading your mind. This is the statutorily required language.
I have two comments. One is, it says, shall we, all the others ones say, to see if the board, if the town will.
What's wrong with shall?
Huh?
What's wrong with shall?
Nothing. I'm just trying to be
He's-
consistent.
he's
Dog on a little
consistent.
mind. Anyway, and then again, I really, that word "and" I think is not helpful.
And when used,
Okay, so
or when used, and, yeah,
there's so many double negatives in the sentence. And I know, I'm not blaming you. I'm just
I
saying.
know, and I
Makes it
had the same,
unlawful for any dog to run at large,
Yes.
except when accompanied by an owner or custodian, and when used for. How does he
The
accept?
and helps,
It should
because
be
you can have a dog.
or. Except when, and when. Anyway, it's statutory.
or,
Is the
yeah,
comma even supposed to be in
Huh?
there?
the and is supposed to be in there. This is taking.
No, the comma
I don't see anything. with
after
the and.
custodian.
If you can get to the sentence, so it's good for you. I'm proud of you.
I'll get clarification.
Whatever, it doesn't.
Yes, I know.
It's not clear to me how this sentence works.
And trust me, I'm not looking forward to, I'm debating whether or not we should have Laura attend town meeting, because what I'm not looking forward to is the parsing of words that is likely to happen at town meeting relative to people demanding a clear understanding of under what circumstances they can be off their property with their dog off leash.
But this is enabling legislation. This is not the law. So
Correct. It's not-
before
it's
we
not the
do not
ordinance.
have a law.
Right.
And this does not give us a law. This
Right.
gives the
Gives us the
town
ability to
the
consider a law.
authority to
Right.
consider a law.
Correct.
And so that's the reason why we're
And
taking
that-
it to the voters. And this
that-
article is confusing as crazy. This is crazy,
Well, this-
craziness.
I disagree. This is the state RSA. It's a law.
This is the RSA and this was the language, but Laura, so just be advised, Laura emailed me this afternoon to say, can we talk about the warrant tomorrow? She's been up to her eyeballs in court cases. So she may very well provide me, and I will share with her what I shared with her verbally, what I shared with her in an email, which is, this is very confusing. Can you help me elucidate this, please? Both in terms of this wording, but also the way in which I've written my background information. And the only reason I want it absolutely clear in my mind is I can anticipate, even though at town meeting, we're only talking about enablement, we're gonna have a Donnybrook over the statute and what the statute says we can or cannot do, because people will have come out to speak up to this issue, on this issue, and I want to have absolutely clear in my mind what the statute, once adopted, enables us to do or does not enable us to do as a town, so.
Right.
I mean, explain to me, please, Julia, this is a state RSA, which
Correct.
makes it unlawful. That sounds like a law,
Right.
using the word law.
No, so yes, you're correct, Athos, but this is just enabling. So all we are.
Excuse me, is this enforceable?
So all this does is it makes it possible for the board to consider adopting a leash law. This does not mandate that the board must bring a leash law forward. All this does is provide the select board with the authority under the statute to draft and consider the adoption of a leash law.
Is this not enforceable as it stands?
No,
I don't know what you mean by, is this not enforceable? What do you mean, is this
I mean-
enforceable?
It makes it unlawful. That means it is against the law if this is what they are wording is occurring.
I still don't understand what you're.
Oh, I don't understand.
The
So we
law-
adopt the provision,
Right,
which makes it unlawful for any dog to blah, 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 blah.
right,
Therefore, it's unlawful.
because that's what the state law says we can do to regulate dogs and leashes.
Right.
Right.
So why are we saying this is just enabling when it's actually a law?
So I'm acting based on the direction of the town attorney in New Hampshire for towns, not cities.
Yeah.
Town meeting must adopt this enabling statute so that the select board is so armed to draft an ordinance requiring leashes off private property. It is because this statute is murky, which reflects the state's lack of firm resolve regarding the leashing of dogs, because after all, this is New Hampshire. The statute itself is anything but clear. And the thing that I find sort of frustrating about it is that anybody could argue, well, this dog is in training, this
course.
dog is
I train my dogs all the time.
right. Or that I would argue that the statute says as long as this dog is under my voice command, that dog doesn't need to be leashed.
Again, it's very confusing because it's unlawful except when accompanied by an owner. So that means the company, that doesn't mean.
No, Peter, excuse me, Peter, I'm sorry, I keep interrupting people, but
It's okay.
when accompanied by an owner and when used for
But that
these specific activities.
no, that and isn't necessarily, you don't have both conditions existing.
It's all.
because that's why there's a comma.
That's why
And/or-
there's a
and/or.
comma there, Athos. And so,
No, that cannot be correct. That is not the correct interpretation of this.
oh God, guys.
I disagree with you completely.
I just-
Kari has a
Try to do
question.
it in English, just take a shot at what the intent is.
Well, and I was also a little surprised that this just didn't have the RSA. I mean, the RSA is horribly written, but I'm surprised that Article 26 doesn't have the RSA. Whatever it is, it's this long, right?
Well, I mean, what we could is shall we adopt RSA
You shall.
466:30-A, which states and put the entire
Why don't you do that?
RSA in here.
That's what I would do.
So
Just,
can you show it to us? Where the RSA
Well,
hang on,
I mean, I think
You can
what's
look at it.
important is, and, you know, my understanding, the way it has been presented to us by you, is that we are voting on enabling legislation
correct,
that then gives the community can vote whether or not it should take up the consideration of a leash law.
correct,
We then draft the town of Hanover leash law,
right.
and we hold a public hearing. And should this illustrious board decide that that's what we should have,
Right.
they have to vote in favor of it. If after going through the writing of the ordinance and the public hearing, and we decide public is against it, then we don't adopt it. But
Right.
this is basically saying you are enabled to take up this issue.
Consideration of this
Right.
issue.
This, the way this is written, I agree, it is very murky and confusing. And we need clarification.
Well,
I
that-
need clarification.
But I disagree with what you just said. This seems like we are accepting a law.
all I can tell you, Athos, is this is what we've been directed to do by the town attorney to get the board to a point where they could consider drafting and adopting a leash law. I would also tell you that knowing the level of conversation we're likely to have a town meeting about this, that my sense is that our leash law is going to need to be quite specific in terms of making much clearer than the statute does when dogs must be leashed and when they need not be leashed, because the statute itself is really murky. So the devil will be in the details, and we heard one of those devilish details at your last meeting on this, which is electronic collars.
Absolutely.
Right.
Allowed.
And that suffices as a leash.
Yep.
And so somebody's gonna have to kind of look at this.
Julia is dancing that
Pretty-
she's retiring.
Somebody is gonna have to look at the implementation, the nuances of what constitutes a leash and under what circumstances. So I do believe what I would say at town meeting is this is enabling statute, which you must adopt so that the board can go forward to consider an ordinance. That ordinance will need to address the many issues that will be raised this evening about what constitutes a leash and what constitutes private property, is the college private property, and all those things. And it's gonna be, it'll be a community conversation that allows you some flexibility in terms of under what circumstances you might want to require leashes and under
Right.
what circumstances.
And
you might not.
I think the explanation here, although it's tightly drafted, makes that argument.
Right.
I think it clearly says what you just stated.
This is step one, and
It
step
has-
two
is
is,
in the explanation,
right.
but
Yep,
this
But the
article.
article needs
I
to be
just-
written.
I just read RSA, this RSA, and it's not terribly written. And it does make clear that if the dog is off leash, it should be doing activities as such.
Hunting, herding, supervised competition.
Yeah.
Guarding,
Which, by the way, are plentiful.
right.
All right, give us some light.
I decided I was going to sit here. So Kari Asmus, I'm speaking for myself, although believe it or not, this also came up at the finance committee meeting. Because we too were confused. And I guess I first just want to add to Peter's question that, yes, it states right here in the RSA that the questions wording shall we adopt. So that has to be there, and it's the little boxes to check yes or no. So there's not a lot of wiggle room. There's not any wiggle room on the language. I guess that said, reading this over, I know that there's at least two of us that do not see where it says that this is enabling. It does seem as though you are asking town meeting whether or not this shall be what the town goes under. And it doesn't give another provision that it come back to the select board.
But this is how the statutes work all the time, Kari. And we need to listen to the town attorney on this and not to citizen interpretation of the statute, because Laura's dealt with this issue hundreds of times across New Hampshire.
I appreciate that, but I think that it speaks to how confusing this is going to be. And I have to say, I'm rather agnostic about this. Sure, I have, as far as my own, view or whatever. But what struck me about the last conversation when we were here before was that there was a divergence of opinion among the five of you, and in some ways that was refreshing. But I think that speaks to how this could be divisive for our community, how it's not going to be enforceable, how we can't even agree what the words on the paper mean. And I have to say, I would, you know, you may feel that the water's already gone under the bridge because you took one vote on it. But I mean, I would encourage you, if not tonight, then at town meeting, to put forward a suggestion that we have a town study committee where people who are of different opinions come together over the coming year and, you know, work this thing out, because again, whatever this means, it's probably not going to be enforceable. And so to say that that is the best that we can do as a community, for me, I just aspire more. So I would like a process where we try to bring the community together and come up with a solution that works for our community. I know that was one of Atlas's comments the last time, that we haven't tried anything else. This is our first go-to, and if we know it's not going to work, can't we come up with a better plan? And I guess that's just where I was really coming from tonight, in my comments.
Karen, I agree with you completely. And part of that is, you know, we say let the town vote on it, but we all know that the town that's going to vote on it are the people that are going to stick it out to 9 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon, and not necessarily a comprehensive representation of who's for and against this issue. I think we need to do more than we are doing, and we should do more than we are doing, because it is a divisive issue. I've had many people, after the Valley News article, people have sought me out and given me quite an earful from the other side, from the.
What about, you know, if you had a study committee, first up, community survey, so that we understand that it's not just the people who are showing up or, you know, writing letters, but what is the community think broadly? You know, use that as the starting point for then what the next step should be. And, you know, and make sure that we have a consensus before moving forward. And again, this maybe needs to go to town meeting at this point, because.
Julie, are we irreversibly committed to this warrant at this point?
No, I
Can we
mean,
pull it? We want to.
yeah,
If
this
board
is the
decided-
night, to finalize the warrant, Peter, so you can add warrant articles tonight, you can eliminate this warrant article. I think we had people left last meeting thinking it was gonna be on the warrant,
Sure.
so they may not be happy, but it's.
Okay, so let me just, is there any appetite on the board to reconsider this warrant?
Well, I actually, if this is how it has to be presented, this is not my understanding. I mean, so we use our lawyer, like we say a sentence and then we call our lawyer. So, I mean, we use Laura often and she's an incredible resource, but the intent, my intent to bring this forward was we have had people come to us and ask us to address the leash law. We've sought legal counsel. Legal counsel said, in order to even consider a leash law, you need to do this enabling legislation. That's why I support it. If, as Athos has said, you know, we're basically adopting a leash law, that was not the intent. That was not, you know, I think we all agreed that we need to do something. My understanding was get it out there. It'd have to be a committee, we'd write an ordinance, you know, we have public hearings, we get feedback. If we all, I mean, I sit here and I read this and I don't know what the heck it's saying. I would say pull it, but I would like us to be responsive to the citizenry who've asked for us to do something more about dogs.
Sure.
So I hear a willingness to reconsider. Joanna, you were kind of a sponsor of this. Bill, you voted in favor of it. Did you want to reconsider?
We all did, except Athos. We all voted in favor of it, right?
Yes, we did.
Except Athos.
But I would like to say that I agree.
We do agree,
While I
but
completely disagree with you on many issues regarding this issue, not many points regarding this issue, I completely agree with you on this one. Was that clear?
I get it. I
It
get
would
it.
probably make more sense for the town to draft an ordinance using whatever feedback group you want to use to draft an ordinance. But you couldn't make it official until the town meeting acted on this next year.
And they know exactly what they are.
And then you'd be able to include in the town report a copy of the proposed ordinance, so at least you had some specificity tagged to this fairly murky,
Arcane.
statutorily required warrant article, so people would know what they were enabling. So,
Can I just respond to that?
Please.
Um,
I got you.
Now that I have to respond, I have to remember what I was gonna say. I apologize.
drafting an ordinance.
Yeah, instead of saying drafting an ordinance, can you say plan of action?
Well, remember, the police department can only take action to deal with unleashed dogs if town meeting adopts this statute. So a plan of action was what we had in place for many years when the town rescinded its
Right.
last leash ordinance in
Okay, I think you're-
1996. But
We go back to 60,000 feet. One of the things we could do is pull this
Right,
and make a commitment.
Right.
To do
that's what I'm saying.
a study as to whether this town is in favor of a leash ordinance or not. Right, and we can draft, or, so that would be, our commitment would be to work with the public to determine whether the community wishes to have a leash ordinance. And if it comes back positive, then we'll make that happen. We'll encourage that for the next go around. That's one way to deal with this. Can I have one more public comment, please?
I can really start with it. Again, I think that makes sense, what you're kind of leaning toward. Again, I don't really have strong opinions either way. I just think it makes sense to have voters understand what the second step is when they're voting on the first step, right? So I think that makes sense. Another question that we kind of had, just sitting back here listening, is under Roman numeral 5 of an RSA, was it 430?
Roman numeral 5.
No, Roman numeral 5. So I'm just gonna read it just because I think this is where some of the questions are, and maybe we can go back when we make this working committee to figure out what this means, but so it says here in the RSA's, quote, a town or city which either does not adopt or rescinds its adoption of RSA 466:30-A may adopt other ordinances pertaining to dogs running at large under RSA 31:39 or RSA 47:17, Roman numeral 11. So again, these are just kind of questions, and if we don't know the answer to that now, I think that makes sense to kind of develop a working committee. So I just wanted to make sure that we have that voice as well, because it's kind of a question.
Okay, so let me go back to my question. Is there willingness in this board to reconsider? I think you said.
Yeah,
Given where we are.
but I do
Given where we
feel
are.
we're compelled to study it in this
Okay.
fiscal year,
Yes,
and that we,
The issue wasn't here. I think you would you be willing to reconsider this? You weren't here, but-
I think this is a fine idea. We all have to understand that it is a lot of work in a year when we're gonna have a lot of work on our plates.
Yeah, I supported doing this because I wanted to get it out in the public and get a vote. But based on the continuous conversations of confusion, that it makes no sense to go to a town meeting when we can't even explain it to ourselves, never mind to a group of 100+. So I would default to defer it and have a study
So-
committee.
So- one other option, before we totally kill it, is we could simply ask the question. Instead of having some like legalese that we don't understand, Article 26 could be to see if the town would want to study the potential adoption of a leash law, of a leash ordinance.
You're trying to commit us, you are intending to commit us to what you were saying earlier.
Well, I'm just
Which is
saying,
fine.
I mean, basically, I'm
That's fine.
saying, put it out there, and, none of us want to serve on a committee if the public doesn't want to take this up. I mean, I put it out there because I've heard a lot of people would like us to do a better job. But it may also be, I mean, that's what the town warrant is about, right? You're reticent to do that.
I think my observation would be, if you want to get a good turnout at the town meeting, put
Yeah.
something on the agenda related to leash law, no matter how basic conversation. And then
Well,
we'll
we're
spend-
trying to get
then we'll
public
spend- Yeah, well,
participation,
again,
yeah.
cookies didn't work, we know that, so. If we put it- So if that's, all right, make it serious. I think if you have a basic thing like that, you're gonna get a crowd. And a large percentage of the crowd's gonna say, yes, just study it. The other large crowd's gonna say, you don't need to study this, this is crazy. And we're gonna get this conflict in the town meeting.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that's healthy for the town, where I think the select board has the authority to say, this is an important decision for the town. We should take it very serious and in an organized manner and study it. And we're making a commitment tonight, it's in the minutes, that we will make a commitment to pursue this over the next fiscal year. And the public can hold us accountable if we don't, regardless if you want it or don't want it. We said we would do something and we were committing to do it. And that accomplishes what you could get out of a town meeting with tension.
Yep.
That'd be my observation.
That's a really good observation.
You may want to start by doing a survey. that
Well,
folks
however
can
we do it, I don't
access.
want to get
Can I
into,
ask
personally,
another question?
I'd rather not get into how we're gonna do it right now. Another half hour
The planning board articles are voted on.
During the day.
during the day.
Okay.
Yeah, this does not require a ballot vote.
So
An official ballot vote, it's a paper ballot.
Okay, we got one more, and then we're done.
I wanted to.
Wait till you get to the microphone. So everybody can hear
People can't hear you. They're watching you on television. They want to hear your voice.
I wanted to respond to what Bill Garrity just said. I'm sure you all remember the all in favor, because the League of Women Voters bought about 30 copies of it a few years ago. We gave one at the time to everybody on the town board. But one of the things they said was not that it was important that town meeting cover things or have things on it where that did generate controversy, that it wasn't just a rubber stamp. So I think the argument that you just made, Bill, is not an argument to have the keep the warrant article in it as it is, but something that generates discussion and debate and so forth is healthy for. And I would encourage you to put something like that out, something that not that it commits you that you have to have a leash law, but at least if you get people to come out and argue about something, that's a good thing.
But I guess my concern about the argument is we can't explain the law yet. And until we can at least understand it, what if you vote yes, what does this mean? Vote no, but just the pure turnout of people, some people saying yes, do it, some people say no. I don't see any added value at the town meeting this time. Next year will be the debate if the committee moves forward with a.
Okay, I'm
I
gonna,
wasn't advocating for voting. in
okay,
favor.
so I think I hear a willing, I'm gonna move that we remove this warrant article.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of removing this warrant article?
Aye.
It's gone.
But
And we're making
With the,
commitment.
yes,
Yes.
everybody agrees to that.
I think we just need to reflect in the minutes that we're committed to pursue this
Yeah.
under a study approach
Vigorously.
and get the
action next
community
year.
involved.
Excellent.
Because this was already out in public, I mean, this whole agenda and all of the supporting evidence has been out in public. Does this require a separate notice in the Valley News, a letter to the editor, even a post-it on our town bulletin board? Because all of a sudden it was there and then all of a sudden it's gone. And so if you're not,
Well,
watching
we
TV
could-
tonight,
We could certainly put a sort of an
It-
announcement on the.
It will be a story. I don't think we have to worry about it.
Okay.
Maybe what?
Someone will watch this and there'll be a story. I
Yeah,
think
and-
that there are a couple of people who came to me personally. I will reach out to them personally and let them know that this was our discussion. I mean, I'll take
I
that
mean,
on
I
a
had
couple of
calls from the
people. so-
Boston Globe, the Manchester Union Leader, the
Oh.
Burlington Free Press on this issue.
Yeah, so did I.
And, in the middle of the invasion of Ukraine. So all I can tell you is.
All right,
Yeah, that's right.
27. guess we
You
don't have
don't
to
need to
vote on
vote
27.
none. Yep, so you're done with the warrant.
You're done
And
with the
what we'll
warrant.
do at your next meeting is figure out who wants to do which items.
Nancy gets the two long ones.
Speak to these items on the.
Okay, so where are we?
We're only on 3.
We're on
Yes, but we're.
And
gonna
there's
move-
12
move
on the
quickly
agenda
now.
for those who,
in a non-public session.
So item.
And a
We got a game starting in 5 minutes.
Basketball game.
Hope
We
you're
are
recording-
motivated.
Hope you're recording it.
Are you ready?
no, no.
There's a two
Oh, yeah.
public hearing. So I adjourn the public hearing on the warrant.
Thank you.
We have a recommendation. I move that we adopt union contract for FY 22-23 with AFSCME, local 3657 police department employees.
Second.
We've been around this a lot. Any questions on the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that
Thank you for coming, everyone.
everyone, yes, thank you.
We'll miss you.
I recommend we adopt. I move that we recommend the proposed union contract for FY 22-23 for the IAFF local 3288 firefighters.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, we have a public hearing to set. I move that we set a public hearing on April 18th, 22 to consider modifying the exemption from property tax based on assessed value for qualifying elderly residential property owners. Well, that's because we have to do this twice, right? Okay.
Second.
Discussion.
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
We have to do all these for each of them.
Yeah.
I move that we set a public hearing for April 18th, 2022 to consider modifying the exemption from property tax based on assessed value for qualifying disabled residential property owners.
I'll second that.
Discussion, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I move that we set a public hearing on for Monday, April 18th, 2022 to consider modifying the exemption for property tax based on assessed value for qualifying blind residential property owners.
Second.
Discussion, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. What do we have? A request to review and approve addendum to agreement of participation. What do you need here?
I just need you to approve the addendum as presented. This is just the appointment of two of our representatives to the regional hazardous materials response entity.
So I move that we approve the addendum.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Arbor Day. I love Arbor Day.
I'm not gonna read it.
Oh.
You want to read it? Okay, you got it. Request, a request, a recommendation from Hanover Parks to sign. We have to, so we're going to adopt the resolution.
That's correct. You're going to adopt the resolution. Would you like me to read it?
No, can I read it?
Athos wants to.
Oh,
read it.
Alphys wants to read. Sorry, I'm gonna have you sign this hazardous materials response team. Appointment form. And you guys can, oops, sorry, sign that.
I only have blue. Is that okay?
That's fine. Blue is fine. Yep, blue is fine.
Are you reading this, sir?
I can't find it. I'm finding it.
Here, Alphys, right there.
Wow. This is long. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our town increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Whereas Hanover, New Hampshire has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting ways. Now, therefore, we, the selectmen of Hanover, New Hampshire, do. That's what I said.
It's all right. Keep reading it.
It is what I said. Hanover, New Hampshire, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2022 as Arbor Day. Further, we encourage all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. That's lovely.
Is there?
I
think there was a
move
second.
that, what I just read.
Okay, I'll second it. And would you like to second it?
Yes,
Nancy wants
I'd
to
like to
second.
second the fine public oratory.
Yeah.
Further discussion? All those in support, all those in favor?
Aye.
That proclamation is coming around for you
It's
all
blue,
to sign
okay?
as well.
Here, this has to be, this is going this way too. Yeah. So that's the proclamation going this way. Okay. We have, I move that we adopt records and evidence coordinator job title labor grade 13
Just a new
as
job,
presented.
new job title.
So second.
So this is not an addition, it's just.
Correct. It's just a
change of
revised,
current position.
revised title.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have, I move that we approve all of these family reports.
All of which we can accommodate.
Further discussion?
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes of March 21. I have one comment. if I can find it.
We're doing Leonardo da Vinci.
It's a very cool exhibit at Hampshire.
Yeah.
Have you been to this house in,
Yeah, in the walk.
yeah, I forgot where, near Tool.
Yeah,
but I can't
it might
remember.
even be in, no, Ambroise,
think it's-
Ambroise.
It is,
It's very fun.
yeah.
Okay, I seem to can't find my piece of paper.
What are you looking for, Peter?
Oh, just the minutes. I had one very
Oh.
small correction to the minutes, and I know it's in this pile.
Here's,
I'm gonna give it one more chance.
here's the raw copy.
Let me just go through it. I could probably do it again. It's really tiny.
I love that minutes include the word called parklets.
Parkland, right.
It's like,
That's all right.
It's not significant. So where's one where they
Here.
The tree city proclamation sitting somewhere,
Working.
working its way past Peter probably.
I like, it's well written. Ron, in certain spots.
Yeah, I think they use a sort of a classic form.
we're looking for?
If you just email it to me, we can, yeah,
It's a trivial, just a.
Peter has them as, I'm just making. a
Okay,
note.
so what are we on? We are,
I move we approve the minutes.
With the small edit that Peter will be supplying to you.
I'll second that motion.
further discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Administrative report.
Nothing to report. It's all about town report is done, now that you finalized the warrant, I'll finalize that and background information. We may still have a petition warrant article. Tomorrow is the deadline at 5 PM. So if we receive something, which we did not receive today, I will let the board know, because you'll need to come together for a quick vote at some point this week. I know you've got a busy week in service to the town, so I hope you will not have to do that, but other than that, it's just regular workload.
Select board.
Hanover Bike Walk Committee met today. They're very active. There is going to be a children's and adult bike rodeo on Sunday, May 1st at the race school from 12 to 2. Rain date is the following Sunday, which is May 8th. We've got a good group of volunteers. We've got we're hoping to tap into those March intensive, amazing bike repair people, the students at the high school. And we've got some Dartmouth students engaged, and hopefully we'll have a good turnout. On May 20th, which is Friday, is Curb Your Car Day. And we're hoping to, we're gonna reach out to the Parks and Rec Department to see what we can do for a special event. The committee is also working, updating the bike walk master plan, which we did originally back in 2011, 2012. Been working with DPW and the police department to update that. There is a proposal to change the speed limit within the urban compact area to 25 miles per hour to help with safety and reduce the number of accidents. It has been endorsed by the Hanover Police Department and DPW. They would like to bring that proposal here to do that, and it requires a public hearing. And they specifically asked if this board wanted to have the presentation. They're going to bring materials to us or deliver them to us and ask us to schedule a public hearing. They wanted to know if we would like a presentation at that time, or whether we should schedule, we would prefer to schedule the public hearing and have the presentation at the public hearing. I said I would bring it to this august body to make that call. And then the final thing on my list here is that they, in the nick of time, we got the annual Hanover Bike Walk Committee report to carry at noon. The one thing that was forgotten was we have a number of new volunteers on that committee, and I just wanted to make sure that we recognize them. And so I asked our chair to send me the list, or send the list to Carrie.
Okay,
And we would follow up,
I'm just gonna make a note to
just to make
I'll
sure,
make sure she's got it tomorrow.
because the names on the website are no longer
Okay,
up to date.
okay.
And that's it. So I guess the outstanding question, and sorry that was so long, I know we're late, but the outstanding question is, do you want the bike walk committee to do a short presentation as to why we should change the speed limit in the urban compact to 25 prior to setting a public hearing date, or have them do it? I mean, they'll do both, they'll do one or the other.
I think we need to be informed as to why we would have a public hearing.
Right.
I don't think that needs to be as elaborate a presentation as they might make at a public hearing.
Okay.
That would
And
be
then the second part of the question was when, and I was like, well, I'd really like to have dinner, go to the meeting today, maybe after town meeting. But that was just me personally.
Right.
In terms of when they're ready, they're pulling the package together. So whenever it's, maybe after town meeting might be a good idea.
Yes.
Just a suggestion.
Just to reduce it to 25 from what?
Some parts of town are 30, some parts of town are 35, some parts are 25, and it's just to be consistent. So,
Thank you.
and there is incredible research and US DOT. There's actually a lot of money that's coming down from the feds to support this, to reduce the number of accidents and injuries and with bicyclists and pedestrians. Yeah.
Does that, I mean, I'm for this, I just want to be able to understand it. Is that, well, I mean, we're going to talk about it later, but is that in town? Is that like on, what about like on Hanover Center Road, something like that?
So, but honestly, when they call it urban compact, it's basically,
It's an urban compact. Okay.
it's urban compact. I don't know I know Hanover Center,
Well, it
they've had
stops
some
right at-
issues
stops right-
at Village. So, but part of that might even be urban compact. I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I think it's a good idea. Have them do a
We have to be long enough
Condensed
informed to
presentation.
make it-
Yeah,
is that,
it probably makes the most sense to do it for your first and second meetings in June. Once you have your organizational meeting, which is typically your second meeting in May, right after town meeting. And have a brief presentation at the first meeting in June, and then the public hearing at the second meeting in June, if that works, Joanne.
I will let the committee know.
Make a note of that.
Sorry.
I'm not going to commit to the second. The first meeting in June, they can come and present and then we can make a decision,
Okay, got you,
right, to schedule the public hearing.
got you. Okay.
Your hardworking planning board tried to pull all the stops out on Saturday. And from like people were here from 9 to noon and to create a public forum about the sustainability master plan. And the presentations were excellent. Their only source of sadness was that after weeks and weeks and weeks of publicity and trying to get the word out, mailings and so forth, they had a much smaller audience than they had hoped for. But as they say, you don't necessarily need quantity, you need quality. The people who came, the people who shared their visions and their concerns were excellent. And what was interesting, broke out in about 8 different breakout sessions and came back and reported. And the thing that was, to me, very exciting was that time after time, we heard the same issues, which means there's around like 10 major issues, there's a real sense of cohesion.
I just want to emphasize, one more thank you to the Hanover Finance Committee for all their work, and they have clearly voted to support the budget and have issued the letter for the town report, and will certainly stand up at town meeting and support the budget.
I live in the report. I really, we don't need a non-public session, but I need you all.
Yes,
to
we do.
We do. We need a non-public session. There's been a request for a non-public session to discuss items pursuant to RSA 91A32A, C, and E.
Bill Garrity, yes.
Peter Christie, yes.
Nancy Carter, yes.
Joanna Whitcomb, yes.
We are in non-public session. We'll get that one.
We're
Done.
not coming back, Cedar, so you're good to go. Thank you.
I did find the note.